Hey guys, it's Han, and today I have the Tamiya Honda City Turbo. Um, I wanted to make this video real quick because I saw one of my friends on YouTube, Rex's RCs, recently unboxed a ready-to-run XB version of this vehicle. And he's going to drive it on the track and get his impressions of it, but I wanted to share with him and the rest of you guys how mine is set up, my impressions of it, and how I like my City Turbo. So, just a quick history of the City Turbo. It was originally released alongside the Wild Willie back in the 1980s on a completely different chassis. And then it was re-released as the Wild Willie 2 and the Honda City Turbo was originally called the Willie's Wheeler. But they were re-released around the 90s, early 2000s at, on the WRO2 chassis, which was new at the time. And the Wild Willie 2 is set up on a regular WRO2 chassis, whereas the Honda City Turbo is set up on the WRO2C variant. I don't know what the C stands for, but that's what Tamiya calls it. And there's some minor differences, like the I think the arms might be different, or they're just flipped around or something, so it has a little longer wheelbase. Obviously, wheels and tires are different. The body mounts are completely different. Um, and the front bumper has foam on it and some like minor changes like that. So, but unfortunately, because it's not this body is not originally meant for this chassis, it doesn't fit on the chassis quite properly. First of all, out of the box, it sits up very weirdly high. It looks very ugly, I think, out of the box because it sits very tall and high. Um, and then the other problem is the wheelbase, even though it was lengthened to match the body, it's a little too long now. So you can see the front is matching up with the wheel well pretty well, but the rear is a little stretched back here. So you can see the back of the fender ends up rubbing a little bit, especially if you have the body lowered. And I think that's why Tamiya with the WRO2 version, the re-release, they have the body sitting up super high, so the wheel wells won't hit the wheels. But unfortunately, that makes it, one, flip over a lot easier because it's raising the center of gravity, and two, looks like trash, in my opinion. So the first thing I had to do was lower the body, but unfortunately, you can't really lower the body. Tamiya didn't lower the body for that reason as well, because there is some interference with the wheelie bar in the back, because even though this is a Honda City Turbo, and in real life it is a front-wheel drive hatchback, the WRO2 chassis is a rear-wheel drive wheelie chassis, so unfortunately this vehicle, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, this chassis is a rear-wheel drive chassis, so it does have the wheelie bar in the back, and the wheelie bar does interfere with the body if you lower it basically anywhere farther than stock. So, um, you do have to either completely remove the wheelie bar if you want to lower the body, or trim out some of the rear bumper here so it can lower down and not interfere with the wheelie bar back here. So I ended up going and trimming it out. The car would look a lot better, I think, without the wheelie bar, but I did want to keep the wheelie bar on here because when I took the chassis off, you'll see some of the modifications I did. Mine doesn't wheelie as much anymore, but depending on like how much of an incline the track is on, or depending on how hard you punch the throttle, different scenarios, occasionally it will still try to wheelie, and I'd rather have it wheelie back onto this wheelie bar than try to rip this entire rear bumper off. So it's just on here at this point as a little bit of insurance, and it's tucked in pretty tight to the bumper, so it's not super noticeable for the most part, so I don't really mind that much. But yeah, either take this wheelie bar off, or do what I did and trim the body a little bit to get it to fit over the wheelie bar. So that's something you will have to do. Some other interesting notes about the body is because it was meant for a different chassis, you can see there's some random holes in the front. I believe those are meant for the old chassis. They're not used here, but they do make cool little like intake holes because they're actually like full holes. Even the side here, they're real holes. So that looks pretty cool. You can maybe put some mesh in the back there to make it look like a more of a grill. So I think that adds a little more of a cool factor. I know Ampro Engineering makes some inserts for here to make it say Turbo 2 or whatever. So um, that's something you can do. Another thing is you can notice the driver's side window is open. I believe that had a function before. The sunroof is also open, but the passenger side window is closed. So some interesting stuff there. The open window makes it easier to see the driver, I think, and I think It doesn't really have a function in this version, but it is set up like that. The sunroof, that the reason for that being open is so you can access the on and off switch from the top here, because that's where Tamiya tells you to locate it, and that does make it pretty convenient. Um, and yeah, so taking the body off. Oh, another note is technically if you're a super Honda nerd, then you'll notice that this is called the City Turbo, but it's kind of like a mix match of both the Turbo and the Turbo 2 aspects. So it's not technically a Honda City Turbo or a Honda City Turbo 2, but technically it also is. The fenders are also very comically over fender, like super wide body kind of going on, which might turn off some people, but I think it looks pretty cool. Um, but the body also does not feature any light buckets, but the way the lenses and the lights are set up, you can essentially use them like light buckets if you just drill some holes into them, because both the front and the rear do have light lenses on here, so you can do that. The spoiler is also metal for some reason, which is interesting. Not that I'm complaining, but it is random that the spoiler's actually aluminum or steel or something. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Um, Obviously, mine's not box art. Mine is set up in kind of my old like Hans Hobbies racing colors, I guess, with the pink and the black and the teal. Um, my Blackfoot set up that way. My Super Hornet set up that way. My Hornet set up that way. I had a lunchbox that was painted that way, so I wanted to do that. Oh, sorry to keep going back to the body, but I just keep remembering some random stuff. The this is not stickers. On the stock body, it's molded in white, and then this just has the stickers on it for the paint graphics. I painted mine black. All of this is paint, by the way. Most of it, anyway. The stripes are paint. The 4 is a sticker, and the turbo is a sticker. But the thing about the turbo on the side here, it is part of the red stripe that goes along here. So if you do want it to say turbo on here separately, you will have to cut them out individually and place them individually. And also you will have to place the bottom separately from the top because they are separate pieces. So just some quick things to note. But finally, moving on to the chassis, you can see it looks pretty stock, and it is. I made very minor changes to it. I wanted to make as minor changes as possible in order to get this thing to handle a little better. Lowering the body obviously helps with the center of gravity, but even with that, the body is fairly large. It's not super heavy, but it's fairly large. So and with the design of the chassis, with the battery being so far up, so high up, it does tend to flip over, unfortunately, pretty easily. So I wanted to do as much as I can to mitigate that, especially because the body, sorry to go back to the body, but the body is pretty fragile. You can see how thin these pillars are, and they're only braced by this clear window piece, and over here they're even braced less. So there's not really a body you want to flip over often, especially also since it's a very expensive body and a very rare body and very and it's discontinued now. So not a body you want to really beat up. So basically drive it slowly, drive it carefully, or do what I did and do some center of gravity mods, just simply by doing some weights. So basic, I added ball bearings to it to get it to roll a little better. I wanted to set up my electronics up front to add more weight in the front, but unfortunately with my lowered body, there's no clearance over here, so I had to leave them back here. But to mitigate that, I do have the Amazon like Metal Gear servo. I added it one because I like the performance of it, the response and the torque and everything, but also has an aluminum case, which makes it a little heavier. So that adds a little more weight up front. And then you can see my front bumper is a little longer than usual. So I sandwiched the foam in behind between no, I sandwiched some wheel weights in between the bumper and the foam. I could have left the foam off, but then that would cause the risk of the wheel weights coming into contact with the body and making rattling noise or whatever. So I added the foam here. You can see it's a little bit of a tight fit now, but it's fine. And adding the weights up here adds some more weight up front and adds more traction to the front wheels, as well as not making it wheelie as much. I also added weights towards the front here. I added more weights on this side than the others because the other side does have the motor there. So this is kind of like to sort of counteract the weight of the motor, as well as add some weight more forward. Same here, I added some weights here, and then along with that, I added weights on the bottom here, and then here. I believe these are all 1/4 ounce weights each. So you can kind of do the math of how much weight that is, but it definitely keeps the front wheels down a lot better now. I have a video on my channel where I did kind of a POV autocross kind of driving with this vehicle, and it drives fantastic with this setup. And I don't even have oil shocks on mine, and I can only imagine how much better it would perform on top of that with oil shocks. These stock friction shocks, honestly, aren't that terrible. um, because it is an on-road vehicle. It's not really gonna bounce around that much on a flat surface, uh, but it would help on a track. And I do plan on getting oil shocks for this. I just ended up forgetting about it. I always think I have oil shocks in it, and then it ends up I always put my oil shocks in something else. So, but yeah, really simple setup. But I quite enjoy it. The front wheels are on bearings, and they have some strange adapter to make that happen. The rears, I believe, are just regular 12mm hex, so that's that. But yeah, really nice chassis. I love the WRO2 chassis. It's not the most scale accurate chassis. It's not the prettiest chassis for most people, but I like the comical look, and just I don't know. I like the comical look for the off-road versions anyway. I like how it wheelies, and I think it's fun to try to get such a weird, comical, stretched, cartoonish chassis and try to make it handle like a race car. I think that's kind of fun. Um, but yeah, unfortunately, because this kit is discontinued, you will have to be careful with the body. You will have to kind of hunt down wheels and tires for it because they are kind of proprietary wheels and tires. You can't just fit regular on-road tires on here. And I don't think there's any other aftermarket wheel and tire that's available that will fit here, like the stock spec. So, yeah. But as far as upgrades for this, most regular WRO2 upgrades will fit on it. And then Ampro Engineering makes some parts for it. But other than that, it's just basically oil shocks and bearings and just drive it how it is. So yeah, I will put the POV like driving video as well as some other videos about this car at the end of this video. But Rex, I hope you enjoy your City Turbo. I certainly really enjoy mine and love mine. So I'm actually supposed to be doing something else right now, so I'll have to go back to that. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope it was entertaining, informative, and I'll see you guys next time.